We had a nice rehearsal period for this piece, 3.5 weeks. And I think that Chris and the assistant director, R.D., placed us in our, made us aware of where our marks were without even having to we don't really have the marks on the floor like some places do. I like that. I like not having it marked for me, because generally, if you're within the half inch, or basically where you're supposed to be, it'll all work out okay. So I don't think it's that complicated.
So you're thinking that way? Because
yes.
you know when, if you stop, you go, seems dim, I go down it.
Yes, you find your light.
6 inches later and I go, there I am.
Exactly, you can find it's actually theater 101. first class, right?
Yeah.
Freshman year of college, find your light.
You don't want to be thinking about that now.
Yeah, just find your light. And our positions, like I said, we had rehearsed them enough that we knew where we were supposed to be on stage. Yes.
Yeah, question here?
Could you explain the dramatic significance of the staging, which put Turandot and Keller so far apart during that last love scene? It struck me as a rather dysfunctional love scene, frankly.
Okay.
And it's a time when traditionally they should be together.
Yeah, so the question is, can we explain the significance of the staging and the fact that Keller and Turandot were so far apart for a lot of the final love scene? And what was the significance of that? Anything you want to, can you mention that? Anything Christopher spoke to you about, or why you guys spent so much time apart from each other?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what he said about that. I think his intention was always to have tension, even at the end. Is it all going to work out? So he wanted, I think, a little bit of tension between us until the kiss. And then, we worked together when I was singing a lot to him. He laid down in front of me over here, down on stage left.
Once you kissed.
Once we kissed and all of that. At the beginning, it is a separate thing still. Nobody knows what Turandot's going to do. Is she really going to say, okay? Is she going to say, no, I know she's saying I still don't want you, but in reality, yet we walked towards each other, So I think he was trying to keep some tension in there until the very end.
Yeah, I would also just add to that, clearly, a lot of the staging is not, a lot of the choices the director made in where he placed people and how they moved is not realistic. I think, again, I don't know if this was intentional, but I think what Christopher tried to get is a sense of ritual and a kind of strange, other dreamlike state to the production. We're dealing with a fairy tale, after all. It's a fairy tale that takes place in legendary times, and it's a very brutal world where people are beheaded on a regular basis, and and we're calling for the moon to rise so that the next head can be severed and blood can flow. So we're in a world that's kind of
and
unreal,
he wanted it to end. He wanted it to end that way, which is why we don't go together at the end. Usually in productions, hand in hand, they bring out the elaborate robes, and we dress, and we're going to be king and queen.
And glitter drops.
He really wanted us to just keep it all like as if we stand and look at each other very blankly, actually, quite, with a blank slate, like as if we just told a story, a fairy tale, but we're really almost not really part of it. We were the storytellers, but at the end we're still back to another clean slate.
Yeah.
So, a different concept.
Yeah, to each his own. Yeah.
At the end, it seemed to me that what the crowd, includes you. They don't see the lovers.
Right.
Yeah.
Why am I not seeing the lovers?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, and again, I don't know this, and again, I never tell an audience what they're supposed to interpret, because I haven't a clue on certain things, and I don't remember asking Christopher this specifically. But my guess would be that he gives the story back to the people there, because the opera starts and ends with the chorus singing, about all these men that have been killed. The executioner comes out, and then the chorus mourns the death of all these young men. And the chorus at the end there, perhaps what he's saying is, yes, the story, the chorus comes down with the pictures, and really Turandot and Keller and Liu and Timur, the emperor, all disappear. we're sort of swallowed into this image of the chorus.
I almost imagine if we had trap doors, it would have been cool.
Yeah, you would have just
You
disappeared.
could just fall into the.
But I don't know, you know, the bottom line is, there are two things that I always think about. One is what the director, or the choices the director and the designer are making in touch with the music or against the music. I'm much more concerned about the music than I am the literal meaning of the words sometimes. And for me, this opera is a kind of powerful, ritualistic, strange score with lots of percussive effects, lots of dissonance, and it's this fantastical world. And so there's certainly, to my ears at least, very little that I feel in any way goes against what the music is saying. That said, these great operas, they outlive us all. So if a director or designer decides to make a choice with this Marriage of Figaro or that La Boheme or this Turandot, that is a little unsettling. It's only a matter of time before the next director or designer come along and do something yet differently, or go back to, say, a more traditional look. Portland Opera, we try to mix things up. We tend to honor, there's always at least one production every year. I would say last year's La Boheme is a good example, where we want to honor tradition and do beautiful sets and costumes and have a very narrative and realistic production that tells the story in a very clear and narrative way. I think that's great. Those are the operas that I grew up with, certainly. Every now and then I want to find a production that might shed some light or dust off an opera. We last did Turandot in 2004, and that production was the second time we had done it, which was a much more traditional, sort of, literal production. So it's not like the audiences here have not had the opportunity to see a much more traditional Turandot here at the Keller. So this was actually a choice I made artistically to find a different production that might spark a little bit of questioning, which I think is very healthy. Because otherwise this art form becomes a museum piece, and we don't want that to happen. That said, I feel like all of the questions you had and comments are quite valid. There are some things about the production that are a little unsettling, or a little disturbing, or a little confusing. But every now and then, unsettling the audience, I think, is a healthy thing. And questioning ourselves as artists. Yeah, I think we need to stop that. One last quick question. What's that? Why do we unsettle the audience by making them stare at those bright lights? Yeah. Well, I'm sure that the choice there wasn't to unsettle the audience. The choice there was to create a very bold and kind of intense world. And so the light was very... Was it actually coming out into the audience? Yeah. Yeah. I see. Okay. Okay, yes, you're like the kid in fourth grade. Please. Yes, what? So you like that effect? Oh, that's great. The hanging lights over the desks. So they bothered you, yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, listen, I am being quite sincere when I say all of your responses I think are very valid. And I hope that you will continue to come to the opera and support us and know that occasionally we might do something that's a little bit challenging, but I do feel like, I love that about the audience here, is that the audience that comes to the opera here is a very curious and inquisitive and open audience. And I love that about working here and about our opera company. So I do hope you continue to ask lots of questions and come back again. I also am getting a signal that I'm supposed to remind you that this Friday at 7:30 at Carmen Shape. This Friday at 7 o'clock at Sherman Clay Pianos, we have a series called Destination Opera that Alexis Hamilton, our manager of outreach and education, has a group of psychoanalysts and other people that take each opera and discuss it, not unlike in some ways we're doing today, discuss it from a more sort of psychological and interpretive standpoint. And people love that series. And it's free to the public, so I encourage all of you, if you want to keep picking up this production of this opera and just keep scratching at it, then come Friday at 7 o'clock, Sherman Clay Pianos to Destination Opera. Will you join me in thanking our wonderful artist, Lori Phillips? Thank you all.